The lights were too bright, the cameras too loud, the smiles too sharp. Ana de Armas stood at the edge of the red carpet, her hands folded in front of her, her smile trembling at the corners. This was supposed to be her moment, the premiere of their long-awaited film, but for reasons she couldn't explain, she felt like a ghost in her own dream. She had arrived early, earlier than the others. The press had already swarmed, calling out names louder than thunder, but not hers. They shouted for the director. They shouted for the producers. And when Keanu Reeves finally arrived, calm, cool, kind as ever, the energy shifted. The crowd leaned toward him like sunflowers chasing light. He waved, signed posters, smiled. But he didn't see her yet. Ana stayed back, unsure if she should approach, unsure if she even belonged there. The dress she wore was simple, too simple maybe, and the silence around her felt like a wall. No one asked her questions. No one pointed their camera at her. She had trained so hard for this film, poured everything into her role, worked, through long nights and quiet doubts. Yet at this moment, it felt like all that work had disappeared into smoke. Then, something worse happened. Someone whispered just loud enough behind her. "She's just lucky to be in it." Ana didn't turn around. But those words cut like glass. She took a step back. Her hand brushed against the wall behind the velvet ropes. She could have walked off right then, and no one would have noticed. She could have disappeared. But then, she heard her name. Ana. She turned. Keanu was walking toward her through the flashes, through the crowd, through the noise. Eyes locked on hers like she was the only person there. Her throat tightened. Her eyes filled with tears she wouldn't let fall. "You okay?" He asked softly, close now, his voice low so only she could hear. She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just a bit overwhelmed." It didn't respond at first. Instead, he looked around at the crowd, then back at her. Then, without a word, he reached for her hand and held it firmly, warmly, like she mattered. The cameras turned instantly. The whispers stopped. People started asking for her. Suddenly, the lights didn't feel so harsh anymore. Keanu didn't let go, not even when they walked together down the carpet. Not even when the cameras clicked faster. Not even when they reached the press wall. He stood beside her, not in front of her. "This is her night too," he said to a reporter who tried to speak only to him. Ana wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small. Instead, she just looked up at him, and he smiled at her gently. Later that night, in the shadows of the theater, while the film played, Ana whispered to him, "You didn't have to do that." Keanu looked at the screen, then at her. "Yes, I did." And in that moment, Ana realized something. Sometimes kindness isn't loud. Sometimes it's silent. Like a hand held when no one else will. Like standing beside someone the world tries to overlook. Like reminding someone they belong, without ever having to say it. And as the credits rolled and the audience applauded, Keanu reached for her hand. Again, not for the cameras, not for the press. It's just for her. And this time, Ana didn't look down. She held it back. The after-party was held at a beautiful rooftop in downtown Los Angeles. Lights draped overhead like stars, and music played softly behind laughter and clinking glasses. Actors, producers, studio heads, they all moved from one conversation to another like dancers in a quiet storm. Ana stood by the edge, a glass of sparkling water in her hand. She smiled when people looked her way, nodded politely when someone mentioned her performance, but inside she still felt separate. Even though the film had received loud applause, even though she had finally heard her name spoken with respect, she felt like she didn't quite fit. Her heels ached. Her dress, though elegant, felt too tight around her chest. Not physically. Emotionally, like it was stitched from all the pressure she'd carried during filming. The stress, the expectations, the long nights alone rehearsing lines until her voice broke. She looked around and saw others laughing with ease, moving, with comfort she wished she had. Her eyes stopped when she saw Keanu. He was across the terrace, surrounded by people. Yet again the light seemed to follow him, but then he turned, like he could feel her watching, and he walked toward her. No hesitation, Ana quickly looked away. Embarrassed, but he reached her anyway. "You disappeared," he said gently. "I just needed a minute," she replied, trying to smile. "Want to sit down?" Anna hesitated, then nodded. They found a quiet table away from the music. There was no press here, no noise, just the hum of the city below and the space between them. "You were incredible tonight," Keanu said softly. Anna looked at him, trying to read his face. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it because I have to," he replied. "I'm saying it because it's true." Anna's voice lowered. "People don't really see me the way they see you." Keanu shook his head slowly. "You know what I've learned? Sometimes people don't look. Not really. When they finally do, it's because someone gave them a reason they can't ignore." Anna frowned a little, unsure what he meant. "You gave them that reason tonight," he added. "You held your own. They just weren't ready to notice yet. That's not your fault." She looked down at her hands. "I was so scared before the premiere started. I almost left." Keanu leaned forward. "But you didn't." "Only because you saw me," she whispered. He nodded, then said something that made her heart stop. "Then let me keep seeing you, even when the world forgets to." Anna blinked, stunned by his sincerity. He wasn't being romantic. He wasn't pretending, he was just real. In a city where many only spoke to be heard, Keanu spoke to connect. He saw through things. "People don't see each other anymore," he said. "They just pass by, too busy to pause. But sometimes one person stops. That can change everything." Anna didn't reply. Not with words, but she smiled for real, maybe for the first time that night. And it reached her eyes. Keanu looked at her for a quiet moment, then lifted his glass of ginger ale. To being seen, he said. Anna raised hers too. And to not walking away. They clinked glasses gently. As the night went on, more guests began to leave. The rooftop emptied slowly. The stars overhead denned single quotes in a leaner candor. "A little," she admitted. Without a word, he stood, took off his coat, placed it around her shoulders. Not for show, not for thanks, just because she needed it. And, Anna thought, maybe for the first time in years, that this wasn't just another night. It was a beginning, a quiet one, but real. The next morning, sunlight peeked through the curtains in Anna's apartment, soft, golden, peaceful, but her chest felt heavy. She sat on the edge of her bed, still wrapped in Keanu's jacket. It smelled like the night air, like quiet strength. It's like someone who didn't walk away when it mattered. Her fingers held the collar of it, a little longer before she folded it gently and placed it over the back of her chair. But her thoughts wouldn't stay quiet, even though the night had ended with warmth and kindness. The thing inside her had been stirred, not just because of the premiere, not even because of Keanu's unexpected support. It was something deeper, something old, something she had tried to bury under red carpets and smiling interviews. She opened her phone. Messages poured in, congratulations, praise, glowing words from people she barely knew. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt small. Anna placed her phone down and walked into the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. Not the actress, not the rising star, just the girl who once stood in front of casting agents who never remembered her name. The one who heard "you're not the right fit" more times than she could count. The one who once cried alone in a grocery store parking lot after getting rejected from a role she couldn't even afford to audition for. She touched the edge of the sink. Her hand trembled slightly, then her eyes dropped to a drawer below the mirror. She hadn't opened it in a long time. Slowly, she did. Inside was a notebook, worn, faded edges curled. Her handwriting filled the pages. It was a journal she had started years ago, during the loneliest chapter of her life in Hollywood, when she had no friends, no comfort, no roles, no hope. She flipped to one of the pages, and a line stared back at her. "Maybe I'm not meant for this." Anna closed her eyes. It all came back, the nights she had spent curled up on her apartment floor, wondering if she had made a mistake coming to this city, the days she skipped meals to save money for acting classes, the auditions where they barely looked at her, the producers who talked over her, the silence after she left the room, and now people clapped. Cameras flashed, but inside, the wounds were still there, and no one knew, except maybe. Asterisk asterisk later that day, Keanu texted, "Hey, wanna grab coffee?" Anna stared at the screen for a long time. She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again, then hit send. "Sure, but I need to tell you something," he replied instantly. "I'll listen." Asterisk asterisk they met at a small cafe, the kind with chipped wooden tables and quiet corners. Keanu wore a simple gray hoodie. No security. No crowd. Just him, Anna. Sat down across from him. She looked down for a moment, then raised her eyes. "I want to show you something," she said softly. She placed the notebook on the table between them. He looked at it, then at her. "I started this when I had no one," she said. "Before anyone knew me, before I even believed in myself." Keanu opened the first page carefully. He read slowly. He didn't interrupt. After a few moments, he looked up. "You were hurting?" Anna nodded. "I still am sometimes." "You're still standing," he said. "Barely," she whispered. Keanu leaned forward. "You know what I see? One who didn't give up? Someone who didn't walk away, even when everything told her to? Someone who kept showing up." "Why does that matter?" she asked. "They only see what's in front of them now. They don't care about who I was." "Then remind them," he said. Anna blinked. "You have a voice now," Keanu continued. "You can speak for the version of you who couldn't, for the ones still trying to be seen." Anna looked at the notebook again. For the first time, she didn't feel ashamed of it. She felt proud, not because it was filled with pain, but because she had lived through it and come out stronger. Asterisk, asterisk, as they left the cafe, Keanu held the door open for her. The sun was setting. "I'm not sure how to thank you," Anna said quietly. "Just don't hide anymore," he said. "Not from the world, not from yourself." She looked up at him and smiled. Not because the pain was gone, but because someone saw it and stayed. It started with a breath. Anna stood outside the studio gate, her fingers curled tight around her notebook, the same one she had shown Keanu, the same one that held her worst nights, her lowest thoughts, and her quietest dreams. She hadn't planned this, not really, but something in her shifted after that coffee. After Keanu told her not to hide anymore, she didn't want to stay silent anymore. Not about what it meant to be invisible in a world full of flashing lights. Not about how many talented people, especially women, especially outsiders, were looked through like glass. She wanted to be honest, and she had an idea. A trembling. It's a terrifying idea. Asterisk, asterisk, the meeting room inside. The studio was cold, sharp, filled with faces that smiled only when it served them. A roundtable discussion for upcoming press. Her agent was there, the film's marketing team. And to her surprise, the director. He was a man with a heavy voice and a bigger ego. When she had first auditioned for him, he had barely looked at her. And even during filming, he often spoke. To everyone but her. Now, he sat comfortably, sipping black coffee. Anna took a seat and waited. Someone from marketing began outlining interview plans where she would appear, what she should say, which moments to highlight. Don't mention. Any personal struggles? One of them said. Keep it light, glamorous. People like happy stories. Anna stayed silent. For now? Then they pulled out a script for an upcoming talk show. She read the words slowly. Wanted her to say lines that weren't hers. Compliments she didn't write. Jokes that made her feel small. Her fingers tapped the notebook on her lap. Actually, she began. Everyone looked up. Double quotes. I won't say this, she said, voice calm. I want to speak from my truth, not from a script. There was silence. The director leaned back in his chair. You're new to this, Anna. This is how it works. She looked him in the eye. Maybe it shouldn't. Her agent shifted uncomfortably. Anna, this isn't the time it is, she said, firmer now. I've spent years in this industry being told to stay quiet, to nod, to smile, to be grateful just for being allowed in the room. But I've earned my place here. I'm done pretending otherwise? A beat passed. A long, tense beat. The director chuckled. You're letting fame get to your head. Anna shook her head slowly. No, I'm finally seeing clearly. The room went still. No one expected her to say those words, and for the first time, Ina didn't flinch. Asterisk, asterisk, outside the meeting room, she stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall. Her heart was pounding. Her palms were sweating. But she wasn't shaking. She felt free. Asterisk, asterisk. She didn't tell Keanu what happened until later that evening. They met at a small bookstore he liked. Hidden, quiet, full of old paper and soft jazz. He saw her coming. Before she even sat down, he noticed something different. "You did something brave," he said. She smiled. I spoke up. Keanu didn't need to hear more. He nodded. Proud glint in his eyes. Anna told him everything. The silence in the room, the disbelief on their faces, the fire in her voice. When she finished, she looked at him carefully. "Was that too much?" "No," Keanu said softly. "It was the right amount of truth." Anna laughed, but her eyes were glassy. "I was scared." "Everyone is," he said. "Courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do it anyway." She leaned back in her chair, her shoulders finally light. "I think I want to do more," she said after a moment. "Not just for me, for others too. Actors who are still quiet, or the ones who are still waiting to be seen." Keanu nodded slowly.
I sent.
"Then let's make space for them," she asked. "Yeah, you don't have to do it alone." Asterisk, asterisk later. That night, Anna opened her notebook again. This time, she didn't read the past. She turned to a blank page and wrote, "Today, I didn't shrink. Today I stood. Today I began." The night was quiet in Anna's apartment, but her mind wasn't. The city lights flickered beyond the windows. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't look at it. It had been buzzing all day. Emails, messages, calls, some from her team, some from strangers, some from friends who never checked in before. She stood by the window, holding a warm mug between her hands, and tried to stay calm. Because tomorrow, she was going to speak. Not behind closed doors, not in a studio hallway, but on stage. The film's press conference had grown bigger than expected. The premiere had gone viral. Not because of her dress, not because of a scene from the movie, but because someone posted a photo of Keanu, holding her hand, captioned, "He saw her when no one else did." And it had spread. Millions had seen it. But the bigger surprise came after, when Anna's quiet moment at the studio, where she stood up to the marketing team, was shared by someone in the room. They didn't post her exact words, but enough for the world to know she had spoken up gently, firmly, respectfully. Now the press wanted her to talk, and this time, she wouldn't read a script. Asterisk, asterisk, the venue was packed. Reporters, cameras, bright lights, rows of chairs filled with people who now suddenly had questions for Anna. Keanu stood backstage with her, calm as always. She looked nervous. "What if I mess this up?" She whispered. "Then you'll still be someone who tried." He said, "But you won't mess it up." Anna nodded slowly. Her hands were cold. Keanu gently held one in his and rubbed warmth into it. "You're not alone out there," he added. Then the stage manager waved her forward. It was time. Asterisk, asterisk, Anna walked onto the stage, heart pounding in her chest. She sat beside the other cast members, but it was clear the spotlight was waiting for her. Questions came, fast, sharp, curious, and she answered them all. With calm, with truth, one reporter finally asked, "Anna, you've become a symbol for quiet strength in Hollywood. Can you tell us what changed?" Anna took a breath and said, "I think nothing changed. I just stopped hiding." The room went still, she continued. "For a long time I tried to be small, to fit in, to not take up too much space. I thought that's what would keep me safe. But I've learned that being seen doesn't mean you have to become someone else. It just means you stop pretending you're invisible." She paused. "I'm not perfect. I've failed more times than people." "No, but every failure taught me how to stand taller," second reporter asked. "What helped you make that shift?" Anna looked toward the side of the stage where Keanu stood. She didn't name him, but her voice softened. Someone saw me. Not for the role I played, but for the person I was when no one was watching, and that made all the difference. Cameras clicked. Some people looked emotional. Some just listened. But all of them were quiet because the world was finally listening. *** later. In the green room, Keanu smiled as Anna walked in. "You didn't mess it up," he said. She laughed finally, letting the nerves fall off her shoulders. "You proud of me?" she asked softly. Keanu didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped forward and gently placed his hand on her cheek. Not romantic, not dramatic, just a quiet gesture of belief. "I always was," he said. That night, Anna didn't go home alone, not because she needed company, but because she needed to share something. She invited Keanu over, and together they sat on the floor of her small living room. She opened her notebook and read some of the old entries aloud. He listened, sometimes with a frown, sometimes with a frown, sometimes, but always without interrupting. Then she turned to the newest page, the one she had written after the meeting, and she added another line below it. "Today I was heard." Keanu looked at the words and said, "You know, these pages, they're not just for you anymore." "What do you mean?" she asked. "They're for someone else. Someone like you. Someone out there, still waiting to be seen." Anna stared at the notebook for a long moment and nodded. Asterisk. She knew what she had to do next. Anna stood inside a small theater, not glamorous, not grand. The walls were plain. The seats were mismatched. The air smelled of old wood and fading dreams, but it was full, not with critics, celebrities, or flashing cameras, but with young actors. New faces. Quiet voices. People who, like her once, had waited in long lines with hope stitched into their sleeves. Anna stood at the front. Notebook in hand, this was her first workshop, her first time speaking not to a crowd but to hearts. She had started something not because of fame but because of truth. She called it Pages from the Floor, a space for actors and artists to speak their stories, the ones they were never allowed to tell, the ones that didn't make headlines but shaped their souls. Anna looked around the room. Some were nervous. Some sat with notebooks, just like hers. Some were crying already. She smiled softly. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "I don't want to take your time. I just want to give it back to you." She held up her old journal. "This saved me once," she said. "Not because it changed the world, but because it reminded me I was still here, that I still mattered." She opened it and began to read. Not the polished entries, but the raw ones. The broken ones, the honest ones. And as she read, others began to nod. Not just because they understood, but because they lived it too. When she finished, there was silence, but the good kind. The kind that happens when truth fills a room. Then someone raised their hand, a girl in the back, maybe 20, voice trembling. "How? Did you stop being afraid?" Anna paused. "I didn't," she said, then smiled. "But I learned to walk anyway." Asterisk outside, Keanu waited quietly by the door. He didn't need to sit in the spotlight. He never did. But he was there always, when Anna came out. She was glowing, not from makeup, not from fame, but from something deeper. She had given her pain a purpose, and now she wasn't alone in the way she once had been. "How'd it go?" Keanu asked. "Better than I hoped," she said. They listened. They shared. They cried. "You've changed something," he said. Anna looked at him for a long second, then stepped forward and hugged him. A quiet, full hug. Not rushed, not soft. Just needed. "I would never have started this without you," she whispered. "You would have," he replied. "But I'm glad you didn't wait." She stepped back, eyes warm. "You ever think," she said slowly, "how different things would have been if you hadn't come over to me that night on the red carpet?" Keanu nodded. Double quotes. "I think about it all the time. Why did you?" His answer was simple. "Because you looked like someone I would have wanted standing beside me if it were me standing alone. Asterisk, asterisk, weeks passed. Then months. Anna kept going. She kept writing. She kept reading. She kept creating space for others. She started a small foundation to help young artists tell their stories, especially those overlooked or unheard. She called it Scene. Interviews changed too. She was no longer just asked about roles. People asked her about voice, about truth, about kindness. But no matter how bright her star grew, she kept her feet where they started. On the ground, asterisk, asterisk, one night. Later, Anna attended another premiere. Different film, different crowd. But the feeling came back. The fear, the wondering, the smallness. She stood near the edge, just like before. But this time, a young actress stood nearby, alone. Unsure I'd have noticed her right away, and without a second thought, she walked toward her and held her hand. The girl looked surprised, but Anna smiled gently. "Don't worry," she whispered. "You belong here," and just like that, she passed the light on. Asterisk, asterisk, because once Keanu held her hand. When the world looked away and now she held someone else's, so they wouldn't have to wait as long.